Hi again, Shotzi's here. Andrew Shaw. My second installment now of this giraffe. It's a bit more of a complicated painting than some of the portraits in certain respects. One is that it has a more sophisticated background that usually requires more attention than a unicolor background like in the portraits. Here I'm just trying to fiddle with the shade of blue, how light I want it, how dark I want it, how pure I want it in terms of blue tone. I'm just going to put it like that for now, and I might make decisions later on to change it. There's those distant mountains, which are also coming in the violet, the purple, which is how distant objects tend to look, as the violet is the shortest wavelength, travels the furthest. In the next level of land, if you notice, I'm using the land as kind of a negative space. I felt that the neck was a little bit too wide, so I can use the land to bring in the neck. I'm putting some darks where those bushes go. I like to put down darks first, and then I'll put highlights on top of them. The darks are like the inside of the plant, the part that's not getting the light, or the other side of the plant as we look through it. It comes out dark from our vantage point. Now putting a little bit more light down in that second hill. Something I want to do often is I put something down, then I paint over it. Then I put it back down, then I paint over it. Constantly modifying, not sticking to any commitment. Oil paint is very malleable, it's very movable. And I don't have to make any final decisions at this stage of the game. Putting in the stones again, using a little bit of blue, which tends to be, gray stones tend to have a bit of blue in them as they're reflecting the sky. I'm just fine-tuning the outer line of the giraffe and beginning to put down some markings. The giraffe spots. Apparently every giraffe has a unique pattern of spots. The beauty of doing this kind of painting, like a portrait, is the exact pattern of spots is not really going to be very important. People are not going to recognize a specific giraffe. It might be important to other giraffes, but not to me as I'm preparing it, just trying to get them down. So I keep moving around. I started the spots, then I moved back. I noticed something in the neck, using the sky as negative space, putting in very loosely some features, eye, nose, and mouth. To say I'm not painting the eye or the nose or the mouth, I'm painting where I think it goes. Getting back down to these spots now. Down the front leg, front right leg, front left leg, then climbing back on top, not staying in any one place for too long. The interesting thing about fur is that there's two ways fur could be dark. One is it's just dark fur, kind of what's called the local color, or it could be dark because it's shaded away from light. It can be a bit of a challenge sometimes to know how to deal with that distinction between dark fur and fur that is in the dark. Please notice I keep moving all over the place. Just try and get some highlights in the legs where the sun might be hitting, or where the fur is simply a lighter color. Using a slightly smaller brush for this part. I want to have a little more control, a little more precision. These are not my final marks, though. These are just a guide for where I'm going to put them down eventually. Down to some of the foreground. Look at it right now. It looks like those legs are a bit too long for me, or a bit too short, rather. There's another great example of using the field as negative space to define the figure, to define the giraffe. If I need to bring it in, I use just bring the grass, bring it over, and help use that grass to shape the actual figure. The figure of interest, of course, is the giraffe. And the landscape is sort of the supporting piece of the painting. I want it to look realistic, but also be careful. Those things are more in the distance. So they'll be more blurred, less sharp, less vibrant. One of the distance cues. It helps the viewer see things as further away. When I use more vibrant colors, sharper, harder edges, harder lines, it usually connotes closer. So it's a good way to, in a sense, almost manipulate the viewer into seeing something as closer or something as further. Just fiddling with the shape, knowing that I'm still approximating, I'm still estimating, still trying to find where things go and how they all relate to each other. They're using the negative space of the close field to thin the legs a little bit. Used a scraper there, it was hard to see, but sometimes I have some impasto paint sticking up. It's got too much thickness sticking above the canvas, so I take a scraper and just scrape it off. Because if that hardens, it's pretty stuck there. It doesn't come off so easily. Some methodologies for getting pastel paint you want off is using sandpaper or a chisel, actually, believe it or not. Still trying to get the shape of the legs, just the subtleties, how they relate to each other. Are they forward? Are they behind? How do the feet line up? From a height perspective, the giraffe's right legs are further behind. Anyhow, that is the end of this video. I will have another installment. Please look out for it, and thank you for watching.